Austrian State Railways Nightjet brand is one of the most recognisable across Europe, having significantly expanded its reach in recent years. Today I'll be taking a trip on one of their rather unique sleeper cars, where I'll show you what it's like on board one of the private sleeper cabins as we travel over 14 hours across 3 countries, from Switzerland's largest city Zurich to the Dutch capital Amsterdam. Now join me as the journey continues. As with the majority of long-distance trains serving Switzerland's largest city, our Nightjet begins its journey from Zurich Hauptbahnhof, plugged right in the heart of the city, and is the main centrepiece of Zurich's extensive transit network. Zurich Hauptbahnhof's south wing, which stands before us, recently underwent a major renovation programme, which took place between 2018 and 2023, the main station itself dating back to 1847 and the current station building to 1871. The main station here in Zurich always amazes me. If it's not the sheer volume of people coming in and out, it's the stunning architecture which can now be appreciated fully following the completion of the South Wing renovation. The main operator of the station is Swiss Federal Railways, stylised in 3 of Switzerland's national languages of German, French and Italian. Tickets can be purchased either using the many ticket machines present here or at the ticket office, which has now been relocated to the other side of the main concourse, though I bought my ticket online, as Nightjet reservations can and do sell out fast, especially for private sleeper cabins, so booking in advance is highly recommended. When you're finished viewing the station's intriguing design pieces, it's also recommended to grab something to eat, as catering on the Nightjet is rather limited, as we'll see later. While some supermarkets are found on the Haupthalle or main hall, a greater variety of shops and eateries can be found on the lower level as part of the Shopville Mall. And here's a first for me, a station church or Bahnhofkirche, which is open to all regardless of religion or belief. Zurich Hauptbahnhof is one of the busiest railway stations in the world, with an impressive 150 billion passengers annually and serving up to 2,915 trains per day. Most through and some terminating mainline trains use the lower level platforms 31 to 34, but an even greater amount use the other 9 upper level platforms underneath the stunning 1933 glass and steel train shed, including our Nightjet service to Amsterdam this evening. Here, you can see trains range from as modern as the relatively new Geruno trains, which operate international routes for SBB, to as old as RE420 electric locomotives, which date as far back as 1964. Most are responsible for coaching stock shunting movements, including Nightjet stock, as we'll see later in the video. A station that sees 2,915 trains a day does mean a big departure board is needed, but we can just about see our train, the Nightjet service to Amsterdam Centraal via Basel SBB, leaving from platform 13 just here. Okay, so we're all set, right? Well, not quite. A few bits of admin to get through first. First off is to have the ticket I showed you earlier to hand, as it displays all the necessary information such as name and cabin allocation, which is shown to the onboard attendant before and after boarding. Second is to have a form of ID ready, with a passport being recommended, especially for any Schengen not Schengen checks at the German border. Alright, we're ready to go, and conveniently, here comes our Nightjet fresh from the sidings. Hauling it is an RE460 electric locomotive with a whopping 15 coach consist, 9 being SBB standard Type 4 intercity coaches, and the rest being ÖBB Nightjet couchette and sleeper cars. Well, except for one, but more on this shortly. The Nightjet brand is the Austrian State Railways or ÖBB's brand of sleeper train service, and has gradually grown over the years to being small, humble night trains from Austria to Germany to Europe's most extensive night train network, principally thanks to partnerships with numerous state railways, such as the SBB partnership for Switzerland Nightjet services. This route from Zurich to Amsterdam is a 4-way partnership between Nightjet, SBB, Germany's Deutsche Bahn, and the Dutch state operator NS, which began operations in December 2021, and to allow SBB to fulfill its carriage obligations as part of the Nightjet partnership, it has rented these RDC-owned MUN sleeper cars for the Zurich to Amsterdam service. Funnily enough, these 1999 built coaches were owned by both ÖBB and NS prior to their sale to RDC, the latter now owning all four to have ever been constructed. Hauling our train as far as Basel is another ABB 1990s built RE460 locomotive, though we go through several loco changes en route. Our service tonight is NJ402, crossing 3 countries in over 14 hours to reach Amsterdam the following morning, such is the magic of night trains. No prizes for guessing which carriage is mine tonight, so let's get inside. Before getting on board, the carriage attendant views my ticket and directs me to my cabin, which is where we'll be spending the next 14 hours. The 4 MUN sleeper cars were refurbished by RDC in 2021, and I have to say they look brilliant inside and out. And here we are. First thing to do is to read and tick off the breakfast card, which also includes requesting what time you'd like it delivered before arrival into Amsterdam tomorrow morning. There is a pen provided in the amenity kit to fill this in, but I'll come back to this just before bed. For sleeper car passengers like myself, up to 6 items of food and drink are included with the ticket price, which is pretty substantial. For tonight's journey to the Netherlands, our Nightjet also operates as an interregio train up to Basel, meaning we'll call at most stops en route. After Basel and a locomotive change, we cross the border into Germany and cross almost the entire length of the country to reach the Dutch border the next morning, following which there are 2 calls at Arnhem and Utrecht before reaching journey's end at Amsterdam Centraal, where we're scheduled to arrive at 9:15 Central European Time, following almost 14 hours on board and covering a distance of 767 kilometers. In typical Swiss fashion, we leave Zurich Hauptbahnhof on time at 7:36 PM Central European Time to the 2nd, doing so alongside the Nightjet with double-decker sleeper cars bound for Vienna. Speaking of Swiss railway efficiency, not long after leaving Zurich, the second locomotive follows behind and heads straight to the sidings. An example of this is seen on a previous visit to Switzerland last December with an RE420 locomotive. A fascinating operation to watch if you're stopping by. As soon as the ID checks and briefing was done by the attendant, I went straight out and headed to the couchette car, which, unlike my carriage, which is fully air conditioned, has opening windows, which will allow us to take in the incredible scenery we experience as we work our way out of Zurich and across Switzerland, Germany and the Netherlands, with our RE460 locomotive powering away at the front of the consist. Alright, let's head back to the room and have a look at what's on offer here. The bed is ready-made when entering the room, and I have to say it's incredibly soft, plush and comfortable for a train. I definitely wouldn't mind it for the next 14 hours. There is a ladder here for accessing the top bunk. These sleeper cabins can occupy up to 3 people, and if you're on your own, the top bunk is ideal for grabbing an extra pillow, as well as for luggage storage in the dedicated spaces, and contains cushions at the top to convert the bed to seating space during the day. The middle bunk is folded away for solo or dual occupancy. Whilst the cabin is not a deluxe ensuite, it includes a wash basin to freshen up in the morning, which does the job if you don't fancy using the onboard showers, which I'll discuss later on. There's also an electrical shaver socket which can also be used as a power outlet, though you can find standard 224 power and USB-A sockets by the bedside. Just next to the basin is a bin, as well as storage lockers in case you're in doubt of the security here. Coat hangers are located just next to the door, with bedside lights just adjacent, though I also noticed the SJ or Swedish Railways QR code still present from when these sleeper cars were hired for their Euronight service. I can confirm though, they didn't work. Just below the lights is a phone for contacting the onboard attendant in case there are any issues, which I did have to do just before calling it a day, but more on this later. Speaking of which, there's a handy peephole here with a wide lens view to see who's I mean, coming to your door when needs be. This carriage is fully air conditioned, as I mentioned earlier, with the vents being located just next to the window and just above the small table, which also contains an ÖBB magazine if you fancy some late night reading. The aircon can be controlled using the dials here, though given the warm weather across Europe on that weekend, I tried to keep it down as low as possible. Speaking of which, when going to sleep, you can pull down the draw-down blind here for a bit more privacy, or if you simply just want to keep the daylight out. Overall, this is a pretty decent space, and the refurbishment of these coaches to bring them up to modern day standards was executed very well. I'm impressed. Normally, this train departs Zurich a few hours later and with fewer stops. However, it is paired with the IR36 to Basel SBB on Sundays, meaning we make a few intermediate stops en route to Basel with a much earlier departure, such as Brugg, the home of the Swiss Farmers Union and the Windonisse Museum, the latter being a heritage site of national significance in Switzerland. After leaving Brugg, we cross over the River Aare over the Brugg railway bridge, with our impressive 15-coach consist in full view whilst doing so. Inside our MUN sleeper car is a deluxe cabin which features a double bunk bed. Yeah, you heard me right. A double bed which also has another double bed above, and also includes an ensuite toilet and shower, though this cabin is popular and sells out very quickly. The train crew office is at the front of the coach, and it's here you can also purchase some food and drink, though there's no dining car on board, so don't expect anything fancy. The full menu is linked in the description below if you're interested. The second sleeper cabin on this train is formed of a 1975 built AB33, which is amongst the oldest operated by Nightjet. The interior here is similar to the MUN, albeit with a seat and Nightjet specified design. And here are the couchette cars, which are the cheapest offering available for sleeper accommodation. Here you share it with up to 4 or 6 people depending on the type, and the beds have to be made yourself. There is also a disabled room in the couchette car, though this was occupied so I couldn't get a good look, and just next to this is the disabled toilet. Overall, I found this to be very clean, and if you want some fresh air, you can open the window, though this was difficult to do with one hand as you can see. There are also some coat hooks here, as well as an electrical shaver socket. Seated accommodation is also available, which is the lowest and cheapest tier of accommodation on the Nightjet. Our service tonight is wholly using SBB coaches, though Deutsche Bahn coaches can and are also used where necessary. First class seats are in a 2x1 configuration, and if you want to go even cheaper, you can get standard class seats which are in a 2x2. Whilst I don't recommend seating accommodation, if, like me, you're using an Interrail pass but don't have a reservation, you can still take the train with no supplements, as Switzerland, Germany and the Netherlands are all reservation-free countries. There are also plenty of bike spaces available here, in addition to the wheelchair spaces throughout each carriage. At the rear of the train, there's no control car, so if you fancy getting your steps in like me, you can walk all the way to the end and watch the tracks disappear behind you, as well as watch the weather get progressively worse. It's now close to 9 PM and we're pulling into Basel SBB on time. There are numerous Deutsche Bahn Class 101 locomotives on the approach to the station, including an interesting looking one which I'm sure we'll be seeing again shortly. Basel is a rather unique city in that it has suburbs in both France and Germany, despite being primarily in Switzerland, as it also borders the two countries. Basel SBB is named as such to distinguish that it's operated by the Swiss Federal Railways. The reason for this we'll see later on. The station dates back to 1854, with the 1907 built neo-Baroque station building being another Swiss heritage site of national significance. Here, our RE 460 locomotive that hauled us into Basel is detached from the consist and sneaks away from the station, having completed its duties for the day. At the other end of the set, The Deutsche Bahn Class 101 locomotive we saw earlier is now attached and ready to haul us onwards into Germany, which it will do as far as Frankfurt. This particular one was painted in the Deutsche Bahn Intercity white colour scheme and is the only one to wear the full Intercity livery. The majority of the other surviving 101s wearing the standard Deutsche Bahn red livery, such as this one here hauling the Zurich to Hamburg Nightjet. At this time of day, the majority of trains in Basel SBB will be night trains. The Zurich to Prague sleeper is also seen awaiting departure, where it will reach Czechia just after 9 tomorrow morning. We depart Basel SBB bang on time, and the weather got progressively worse as we exited the station and crossed the River Rhine into our next stop, Basel Badischer Bahnhof, the second largest station in the city. Whilst this station is geographically in Switzerland, the area is an enclave of the German EU Customs Union, with German rules applied to the rail traffic and infrastructure here, with the station being operated by Deutsche Bahn, hence the need for the main station to be named Basel SBB. The station itself is a mere 2 kilometers south from the physical border with Germany itself, which we cross just here. Not long after crossing the border, we arrive into Freiburg Hauptbahnhof, in Germany's Baden-Württemberg region at around 10 PM, which is where I decided to call it a night. Before I get to bed though, here's a quick look at the amenities kit. Classic Nightjet slippers, snacks, a hand towel, a face mask, some sweets, a water bottle and some earplugs to block the noise. And with that, it's time to close the blinds, hop into bed and call it a day. Good night all, and I'll see you in the morning.
The next morning.
And a very good morning. We've just left Bonn Hauptbahnhof and are on the approach to Cologne. It's around 5:30 in the morning, still a bit grey outside, and we're currently around half an hour late. Germany, hey? The night itself was okay, however the lights randomly came on around 30 minutes into my sleep, but the attendant managed to fix it for me quickly, so no stress. Our Class 101 engine has now been swapped for an NS Siemens Vectron, which has to be my favourite colour scheme on these locomotives by far. Now it's straight on to Amsterdam, but first it's time to freshen up in the basin, and then to the showers at the end of the carriage. These are accessible for sleeper passengers only, and waking up at this time means I don't need to wait or rush. Now if you'll excuse me for a second. The main reason I wanted to wake up at this time, however, was to see us pass through Cologne Hauptbahnhof, which regular viewers of the channel will know is one of my favourite stations in Germany. The grand train shed design and Kölner Dome just beside the station make for such a magnificent entry and exit on all journeys made here, including the crossing of the Hohenzollernbrücke over the River Rhine. Even at this time of day, a fair amount of trains can still be seen crossing over it, but this is no surprise given it carries over 1,200 trains daily, making it the most used railway bridge in Germany. It was not long after crossing the bridge and passing the city's second busiest station, Köln Messe Deutz, when the attendant gave me my complimentary breakfast, which, whilst fairly basic, does the job. We're now speeding along the upgraded conventional lines towards the Dutch border and eventually pass through the border station Emmerich before we cross it, which we can now physically see from the overhead wire change here. We're now in the Netherlands, the third and final country of this trip, and we soon call at Arnhem Centraal, the first stop for our Nightjet in the country. Our last stop before Amsterdam is Utrecht Centraal, the busiest station in the Netherlands despite only serving the 4th largest city and where a sizable number of people alighted. Though being in the centre of the country, it has a large amount of connections to places ranging from Rotterdam to Maastricht. On the final stretch to Amsterdam, we crossed the 1966-built Demke Spoorbrug Bridge over the Amsterdam-Rhine Canal, with a much more pleasant day weather-wise compared to the other portions of the trip. And there we have it. Over 14 hours and 3 countries later, we're at journey's end. Overall, I enjoyed my time on board the train and it was great to finally cover a route I've been wanting to do for ages, but here's why I don't recommend it. Nightjet introduced a dynamic pricing model from December 2023, and this has resulted in large price surges for all of its routes, including the Zurich to Amsterdam route. My Interrail reservation for a private cabin, for example, came to €259.60, which used to be the price of a full ticket for a private cabin, if not slightly more. A full ticket for this route can cost as much as €545 for a cabin and €155 for a shared couchette, and given you don't even get dinner, let alone a sizable breakfast that you would otherwise get from a city centre hotel, this is poor value for money. So until Nightjet decide this isn't the way to encourage further use of night trains, I can't wholeheartedly say you get what you pay for with this train. Anyway, the delays experienced in Germany earlier mean we pull into Amsterdam Centraal 30 minutes late. Now it's over to you. Have you taken the Nightjet sleeper before? What do you think of their services? Let me know in the comments. I hope you've enjoyed this video and don't forget to like and share it to aid the channel's growth, and don't forget to subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications for more content such as this weekly. As our Nightjet heads to the sidings, I'm off for a morning around Amsterdam before I leave to go back to the UK. Thanks so much for coming with me on this trip, and I look forward to bringing you with me on my next one.